Welcome everyone. This is Julie Pankey, and we're really excited to bring you our CBD Town Hall virtual panel discussion. I know we were all saddened, to not be able to meet up at Foxwoods, but it was a good call that we decided not to do so, and super excited to bring you the content live via webinar. So I want to introduce Ashley, our moderator today. Ashley, could you take a moment, maybe do some housekeeping? Well, let me just let everyone know that at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button. So we want this to be very interactive. Think again, if we were all together in person at Foxwoods and having our town hall, and we were able to have a really open discussion about this conversation, which is CBD. So don't hold your questions to the end. As we're going, at the very bottom, you'll see a Q&A button. You can hit that button, ask any questions as we go along. I'll be monitoring it, and I'll be able to jump in so that we get all your questions answered as we go. So Ashley Reynolds is here from Elmore Mountain Therapeutics, and she's going to be our moderator. So let's have you introduce yourself, Ashley. Let me know we're talking about what our relationship to CBD or cannabis is, and then Ashley will move along to each of our panelists. We're so grateful to have this esteemed panel here together. I mean, I say the people that are watching, you've hit the jackpot of panelists, and I am so grateful to them for taking time out of this crazy day, crazy life that we're living right now to join us. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Reynolds. I am the president and co-founder of Elmore Mountain Therapeutics. We are a high concentration, full spectrum CBD company here in Vermont. I come to the cannabis industry as a mother. I had entered into the use of CBD after my own personal battle with postpartum anxiety. Finding relief, I decided that there was a real need for this education, for science-based education, for quality assurance and transparency for this new industry. We're coming up on our third year. My husband and I founded this company in May of 2017. Now coming into our third year, we are really seeing where the rubber meets the road as far as long-term success of this industry. And I think that this panel is a really amazing group of people who care about the quality assurance, care about education, care about building a community and a resource where folks who are just maybe entering the industry, maybe folks who have followed the industry and are reluctant to enter because of all the uncertainty, because of all the conflicting messages. I think that J.M. Pankey Partners and Spa Hive is really striving to build a community within the cannabis space of this level of expertise. So I'm honored to be here. I'm going to try to facilitate the genius that's on this panel. Neil, I'll head it on to you.
Hi, Ashley. Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Wilner. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Wilson Elser. We're a large firm. We have about 800 attorneys across 35 or 36 offices. I focus on cannabis law, and my clients range from growers, processors, insurance companies, doctors, and some medical providers as well. And I advise clients on regulatory and compliance issues. Many of my clients in New York and on the East Coast are in the hemp and CBD space. So I am constantly updating them on the regulations that come out on what seems like a daily basis. Very excited to participate in today's panel. I look forward to a great discussion and some questions from the group.
Mitzi?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mitzi Hollenbeck. I am a CPA and a partner at Citrin Cooperman, which is the 22nd largest CPA firm in the United States. And I am the co-founder and practice leader of the firm's Cannabis Advisory Services practice. So Citrin Cooperman has been in the cannabis space for about 7 years or so at this point. We started getting into the cannabis space really by looking at those companies that were investing into cannabis. And at the time, of course, cannabis included industrial hemp and CBD prior to it being kind of removed from the Controlled Substances Act, which we've got a different issue with the 2018 Farm Bill and kind of a different set of circumstances. But we work with clients both in the adult use, the medical use, and the CBD and hemp industries and those ancillary businesses that surround them, and businesses that are really kind of working with CBD or hemp or cannabis or providing services to those companies or providing packaging to those companies. And a lot of times those companies don't realize some of the issues that the industry kind of bleeds into their own industry just by way of actually dealing with what previously was a controlled substance. So happy to be here. I'm excited to be part of this panel and looking forward to your questions.
Thanks, Mitzi. And Dr. Stephen?
Great. I'm Dr. Stephen Dahmer. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Vireo Health. We're a physician-led, physician-founded medical cannabis company. I got into cannabis really because of my background in integrative medicine. I've studied medicinal plants for almost 2 decades. And I'm really here today as a patient advocate. I think patients deserve access to both cannabis and hemp, CBD, and THC. I think I love to work with tens of thousands of patients and educate surrounding what is right dosing and how do you treat specific conditions, and advocate for safe and quality products that patients can trust and utilize in their own treatment or the treatment of a loved one. And it's such a pleasure to be a part of the panel. A lot of work went in the background and appreciate all of that. And I'm glad that everyone can be hopefully safe at home and protected and still get to participate with this great group.
Thank you. So every time that I get a group of folks like this together, I always like to know, what your personal relationship is to cannabis. I'll go first. I take 50 milligrams of CBD in my coffee in the morning, and that curbs my anxiety, as well as I use topicals for neck discomfort, for muscle discomfort, for migraines. I'd love to know, what's your relationship to cannabis, you guys?
Yeah, so I'll start. So what's kind of funny is that I had never touched cannabis products at all until about a year and a half ago, even though I founded the practice group about almost 3 years ago. Mainly because I am a conservative CPA, even though I enjoy gambling and Las Vegas. But that being said, I really just hadn't gotten involved in the cannabis industry as a user. I'd heard a lot about the medicinal benefits. My mother had MS. She was a medical cannabis user. So I could see the benefits of that really, from her personal experience. And that really kind of got me into the cannabis industry. And as a CPA, I think, we have a relationship with investors and the business community where we're kind of looked at as trusted advisors. And the problem is the CPA community has kind of rejected this industry as a whole up until we're finally getting a little bit of traction. So I kind of feel like it's my duty as a member of the accounting profession to really kind of help legitimize the industry from a business perspective.
Neil, Stephen, how about you guys?
Sure. So in college, I would say I had a much better relationship with cannabis than I do now. From a professional aspect, like Mitzi was saying, the legal industry has also been slow to adopt and really adopt the cannabis industry and advise clients and jump in head first. But it is part of my job to understand the different products, to advise clients on different products and regulations that affect the different products. So it's important to keep up to date. On the hemp and CBD front, I am a big fan of hemp flower with high CBD content. It's a very, very good stress. It's good for stress, I find, and also good for pain relief. I got some chronic back pain, and with 2 young kids at home, carrying them, feeding them bottles, it certainly helps a lot with that, and helps my wife and I stay away from traditional painkillers in much more addictive medications. So I am certainly an advocate of cannabis and hemp and CBD use for medicinal purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Great, my turn. I live in New York State, and either fortunately or unfortunately don't have a qualifying condition, so I don't get to partake in utilization of THC. I'm a huge plant medicine advocate. I love exploring utilization of CBD and taking it to the next levels, and have done this kind of my entire career, from essential oils to other terpenoids, utilizing those in treatment, seeing how those impact my body. And then, I think my relationship with the plant has become kind of a 24/7 relationship. Again, kind of overseeing dispensaries with tens of thousands of patients. Every email, every phone call, every minute of my waking day is dedicated to cannabis. I turned in 2 chapters, each 7,500 pages this morning in the midst of the COVID crisis. So love it and just fascinated by it, and have developed a very, very close relationship with this plant.
Great. So guys, let's get right into it then. So what is CBD?
I wanted to add something. I'm not a panelist, but I will jump in here and there. And I wanted to say, I've been in the spa industry and I'm immersed in this world, but I have not, sorry, I know my dog. Of course, he's, but I've felt like I haven't known enough to be able to be comfortable in this space. So I don't know who else on the call and joining our webinar may feel that same way, especially in our industry, not having the education that allows me to be able to make the decision.
So what is CBD, and why should we bring it into resorts and spas? Why should we pay attention to quality assurance? Yeah, what is this stuff? What is CBD? Guys?
Well, I can tell you from the quality assurance side, or at least from the fraudulent side, as to what's out there, right? So if you really kind of consider how quickly the industry has really developed based upon, again, the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill, which removed hemp or CBD derived from industrial hemp from the schedule of controlled substances and kind of opened up the floodgates in the CBD world. But there's plenty of bad players out there, and there's plenty of false products. And I think that that's something that, people need to be aware of, that not all products are legitimate. Not all products are the same. Most of them are not tested appropriately. They don't come with certificates of authenticity. So that's kind of the quality assurance piece in the business perspective, to watch out really for the fraud within the industry, because there is fraud that's fairly rampant in this industry. And a lot of times it's just preying on the fact that people are not educated about the product itself.
I Mitzi had to say, I'll let Dr. Dahmer talk about the science behind CBD, but from the quality assurance perspective, there are a ton of bad actors out there currently taking advantage of this booming industry. It's already $1 billion industry that's anticipated to reach 22, 23, $30 billion, in a few years, depending on who you ask. We'll get into this in more detail throughout the panel, but each state has very different hemp and CBD regulations for manufacturing products, quality assurances, processes for manufacturing products. Each state has different labeling, packaging requirements, and all the state legislation regulation is different than federal regulation, because on the CBD side of things, the FDA still controls it, and they say CBD is an impermissible food additive or dietary supplement. But contrary to that federal guidance, states have come out and passed their own rules that are different. So in this gray area, a lot of bad players are trying to take advantage of the consumer and pull a fast one over them. So as spa owners, it's critical for each one of you, if you do carry CBD products, to understand the brand, do your due diligence. And again, we'll get into more detail about this later on, but do your due diligence into the efficacy of the products, into the efficacy of the claims that they're making. It's critical.
So what should somebody be looking for Neil,
Wait, Ashley, before we jump into that, I just want to kind of take a step back and say, kind of what is CBD too? And, and so CBD cannabidiol is one of the two most prevalent phytocannabinoids, right? THC is the other one. And CBD does not have an intoxicating effect, right? And that's the concern oftentimes with THC at higher dose can cause someone to feel high or to be intoxicated, and CBD does not. The plant has 110 plus phytocannabinoids, so there are many of these, but CBD and THC are the most prevalent. And this amazing compound that the plant makes works on an endogenous system in our own body, the endocannabinoid system that is really important for maintaining balance, but also important in many other functions. And CBD has been shown to impact things from inflammation to sleep to potentially anxiety and anxiolytic. And has many potential therapeutic actions in the human body. So just as a real exciting compound that this plant makes, that I've been giving lectures about cannabis for 5 years, and I used to ask I still do, ask every crowd how many people have heard about CBD. And 5 years ago, no one raised their hand. And obviously things have changed, that we're learning a lot about this very exciting compound. And as Mitzi and Neil are hinting at, we have to also be cautious with how fast things are moving.
Are most people's bodies producing the proper amount of endogenous cannabinoids? And if not, why is that?
Yeah, I'll take that. Again, we don't know right now what the proper amount is. And there has been a term, and it was coined by Ethan Russo that many have probably heard of, a board certified neurologist, very experienced in the space. It's called a clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. And the thought is that, some of these diseases that we didn't have a reason for might be due to an imbalance of that endocannabinoid system. And similar to if you have thyroid disease and have low thyroid, we give you thyroid hormone. Similar to that, we might be able to do the same with cannabinoids. We don't know what the optimal level is in the human body, and we're just starting to have the ability to test that. But we do know that it's a very intricate balance, that there are ways even outside of the plant for us to harmonize our own endocannabinoid system. And some of the studies reveal from cold baths, if you're up for that, to meditation, to foods rich in omega-3 fatty acid, nutrition, all these can have an impact on the endocannabinoid system to help balance it, that can help balance us as human beings to fight off infection or to live a healthy life.
I think we're all in agreement about quality assurance in the sense that it should be available. Any brand that you're considering, it should be available. Both potency, so is there THC in the product? How much CBD is in the product? As well as purity. Can you guys speak? I wish we had Sean on this panel, our farmer, talking about how hemp and cannabis is a bioaccumulator. Can we talk a little bit about sort of what to be wary of when it comes to quality assurance? Mitzi, you were talking about, and same with you, Neil, you were talking about how this is a growing industry, it's growing really quickly, but that there are a lot of bad apples. Let's talk about the companies that are doing right by health and wellness for people. Why is it so important? Why is quality assurance so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways.
After Mitzi and Neil answer that, we have questions coming in fast and furious. So I'm going to hop in with a few questions too, and we can tie a few of them right into what we're talking about now.
Okay.
Sorry, Mitzi.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, I was just going to say that, a certificate of authenticity is one of the better ways to ensure the quality of the product that you're actually receiving. And, you should be weary if you're not able to obtain your certificate of authenticity from the manufacturer. And I think, what we're seeing is, so I live in Massachusetts, and the hemp industry is regulated by the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. And they've gone in and they've done raids, essentially, of CBD products because, again, they're following under the FDA's jurisdiction, which says you can't really infuse these products into food products or beverages or those that make health and beauty claims. So you have to be weary about that as well with the products that you're buying. So that being said, Massachusetts really doesn't allow if you sell, infused gummy bears, CBD infused gummy bears. Now, under the adult use cannabis market, you can sell infused gummy bears. So that's a different story, and we won't get into that nuance on this webinar. But that being said, when MDAR has come in to do some of their enforcement actions, and they will go and independently test some of these products, oftentimes they're finding that the product or the active ingredient in there is actually melatonin, or it might have levels of synthetic THC, or it might have higher levels of THC than would be allowed under the Farm Bill, and 0.3% THC or lower. And oftentimes it has trace amounts of CBD, if any at all. In addition to that, they found that aluminum cans typically will have a binding effect, I think, with the CBD, such that the infusion of the CBD into the beverages in the aluminum cans might not actually be as widespread through the product. So there's a lot of things to consider in terms of what the product's authenticity happens to be. And, oftentimes it really kind of comes down to a testing lab.
Well, that's right, Mitzi. And I think the primary issue that consumers and spawners like yourself need to be concerned about is whether the CBD is from legal hemp. It's important to distinguish between hemp that's legal to be grown and illegal marijuana. I'm going to get off into the weeds a little bit here, but the 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp in the United States by creating an exception to the definition of marijuana in the Controlled Substances Act. So it essentially says the cannabis sativa plant that has less than 0.3% THC is defined as hemp, and that's not considered marijuana. So the USDA, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, regulates hemp throughout the country through each state's individual agricultural department. So currently, states are submitting their own hemp plans to USDA for approval. Any hemp grown pursuant to that state's plan, which has been approved by the USDA, is legal hemp. So the first thing you really want to do is to ensure that your products that you're buying for your spas come from manufacturers that get their hemp from a legal producer. You want to make sure it's from the hemp plant. The CBD is extracted from the hemp plant and not from the marijuana plant. That's critical because if it's a marijuana plant, you're a drug dealer, and that's not good. We all know that that's not good. So one way to confirm that is through an analysis where you can check to see what the levels of THC are, what the levels of CBD are in the product, and all the a handful of the other major cannabinoids. It'll explicitly say what the levels of those cannabinoids are. Second, you want to try and confirm either with the manufacturer or maybe with the state where the manufacturer gets their hemp from, if the hemp grower where that CBD comes from is a licensed grower. Again, you want to be able to confirm that the CBD that you're purchasing is from hemp and not from marijuana. So it's critical to know where the actual source of that hemp is from, if the CBD was extracted, to find out whether that grower is licensed in whatever state they say they're licensed in. I suppose anyone can grow hemp plants in their backyard, just like anybody can grow marijuana, but hemp is only legal if it comes from a licensed grower in a state that has a hemp program. So can't stress how critical it is to know for certain, or as best as you can, that the CBD product you're buying comes from legal hemp.
The last thing I want to kind of mention here to you guys before we move on to, because I think we should take a little break and take some questions from the audience. But Dr. Stephen, I'd love for you, because I think we are all in agreement. We don't want folks to get the impression that they need to fear THC.
Sure.
THC is a naturally occurring cannabinoid in hemp. That's why they're allowing this 0.3% as a federal guideline. But I'd love to just really quickly touch on the importance of THC in these full spectrum, in these hemp products. Why should we have THC?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple reasons. Well, one, I just want to backtrack a little bit, is the importance for this too, is that when we place anything in our body, it's to do good. And if there are either contaminants, which could include pesticides or, other ingredients or even synthetics, that has the potential to really harm us. And so, we need to demand that testing and to know exactly what's in a product From my perspective, when we really look at it from a research perspective and oftentimes treating the qualifying conditions in the state, it's by far, for better or for worse, because most funding through NIH or NIDA has been for THC predominant products from Ole Miss. The vast majority of research that we do have is really behind THC. And that's from treating chronic pain to nausea and vomiting to stimulating appetite, even as a muscle relaxant. It's really THC that has the bulk of evidence behind it. And a second layer to that is this idea of the entourage effect. And this is kind of a term that's been coined, that this slew of cannabinoids and many other components within the plant, when administered together, are going to potentiate a therapeutic effect and even decrease potential side effects. And this is heavily debated in the medical community still. I am a proponent of the entourage effect, and I think that THC certainly plays a role. And so to answer your question, Ashley, is that it's, in my opinion, not essential, depending again on what we're treating, but for the best therapeutic effect to have THC present in the product.
So Julie, did you want to ask a question now of what the audience is asking? I was going to go into modalities and then specifically start targeting what the efficacy of topicals are.
I'd like to address, because we want to keep up with these questions, so I'd rather them not snowball, and I'd love, for our participants to get the answers that they came here for today. A lot of them will probably be directed to Neil. So a big, overwhelmingly the questions that I've seen so far, and I'll scan through, but I'll start with, when we're looking at introducing, products, CBD products, and I guess specifically, we're saying with THC, right? What do we have to look at state by state? So I have someone on the call that says, is there any information for Maryland regulations? Is there information we've already talked about for our New England states? So we touched Massachusetts a little bit, Connecticut, we touched Vermont slightly. So all of our, attendees are in different places. What does that mean if you have a product that you bring in, that's hemp versus with THC, and what does each state, what do you have to worry about with each state's regulations? And then with that, another question that actually came on my phone, not just on the screen, is will there ever be a federal regulation?
Sure. So those are fantastic questions, and I could probably speak about that for 4 to 5 days continuously. I find that states love to make finding relevant CBD regulations like a treasure hunt. The place to start is the state's hemp regulations, which is again usually through the Department of Agriculture. But a lot of Department of Agriculture resources will say something like, we don't offer any guidance on CBD in food products or dietary supplements. Consult this agency. And then when you go to that agency's website, there isn't much guidance there either. So it's really a treasure hunt, and there's no one central location that has all this information. That's a struggle I'm constantly having, because I have a handful of clients who have CBD brands and companies that they sell across almost they sell in almost every state. So it's a struggle to constantly keep updated on the changing state regulations. Maryland, I think you mentioned Maryland. Maryland follows federal FDA guidance, and as I said before, the FDA has a position that CBD is an impermissible food additive. It can't be added to foods or beverages. It can't be marketed or sold as dietary supplements. Cosmetics, on the other hand, they've kind of left cosmetics alone. They've either affirmatively stated cosmetics are permissible, or they haven't affirmatively stated CBD and cosmetics are prohibited. So long as your cosmetic CBD product does not make any health claims or any claims that it helps reduce stress, or it could help with dry skin or anything like that, then it's staying out of the drug category as a cosmetic, so that's okay. And the FDA has hinted that that's okay. But again, as I said earlier, each state has their own specific regulation or lack of regulation. So Maryland follows FDA guidance. I know that because I'm finishing up a 50-state survey for a client on every single state CBD rule. So I pulled that up as a cheat sheet in front of me. To your question, Julie, about federal guidance, just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, the FDA sent Congress a report about its federal guidance. And while most of it was nothing and just reiterated their prior stance, they certainly hinted at the end that they're working towards a federal regulatory structure. They might invoke their power to issue an emergency rule for CBD products, and it's looking like they could differentiate between CBD isolate and full spectrum or broad spectrum hemp extract, where CBD isolate products would not be okay. Those would have to go through normal FDA processes for to add CBD isolate into drugs, whereas a full spectrum hemp extract or broad spectrum hemp extract, if infused to foods or beverages or sold as dietary supplements, would be marketed and regulated like a dietary supplement. That's where I think it's heading. Again, the FDA hinted at that in its report, and that's where a lot of the industry anticipates the federal guidance to come down. It's anybody's guess as to how long this is going to take. There is a bill in Congress now that forces the FDA to create a regulatory structure and to regulate it. That's probably going to be the quickest way if this bill gets passed, because FDA rulemaking, even if they invoke an emergency rulemaking process, it takes forever.
So everyone, to be clear then, the sales of CBD products in a spa, in retail, in a health food store, online, a CBD product, meaning less than 0.3% THC in the product, can be sold in all 50 states. There are some states who allow just CBD, no full spectrum, no THC. Neil, you touched on isolate versus full spectrum. So real quick, isolate is you can isolate one cannabinoid. You can isolate just CBD. But as Dr. Steve had talked about, and I think we all agree, we don't see as much efficacy or long-term efficacy of an isolate, just one cannabinoid being taken from the plant like CBD, versus a full spectrum product that has all different cannabinoids, including CBD and THC. So I just want people knowing out there that the sale of CBD is in fact legal in most states if they're full spectrum. But where there is a bit of gray area is if a spa or resort can put a CBD topical treatment on a menu as a treatment or not. And also it's important to note that there's certain things that you can say about the enhancing effects of a CBD massage and things that you can't. Like you just said, Neil, you can't say, CBD specifically is gonna affect your dry skin, or it's gonna affect this, that, or the other thing. From a clinical standpoint, we do know these things to be true anecdotally, but it's just very, very gray and very risky as a resort or a retailer to be making any medical claims when talking about the sale of these products.
Right, no, that's right. And general claims, I have clients who really like to push the envelope. So, general claims like enhances relaxation or enhances energy or focus. Those are probably okay to say, but as soon as you really get into specific medical conditions like your CBD will cure psoriasis or help with dry skin or help any other disorder, that's really what the FDA is looking for, and it says no, you can't do that. So this goes back into kind of the due diligence process of what products you're going to carry in your spas. You want to take a look at this company's products to make sure that they're not making outlandish health claims on their website. You don't want them to be making claims on their website like CBD cures cancer or CBD helps with Alzheimer's or things like that, because again, that's what the FDA is really focusing on now. They're focusing on really the real egregious actors in the industry that are making these claims and persuading consumers who might who need actual medicine for serious health conditions and are foregoing traditional treatments and taking CBD because they believe it'll cure cancer. So you want to be able to make sure the company's product that you're carrying does not make these claims on their website or anywhere on their marketing or advertising.
And that they are helping you as the spa say the right things, because let's be real here, picking a brand is great. Not knowing how to sell it appropriately is, it's exciting to get CBD into your spa, then what? And I think that people need to understand the severity of making false medical claims for the purpose of selling more CBD, that your social media, your main way of advertising to folks can just be completely shut down. So I think that people should really take note of the fact that although it's very tempting to make medical claims for enhancing profits, it's important to pick a brand that helps consult you along the way for the proper marketing. Julie, did you want to ask some of the questions from your community, or would you like to move on to another topic? Okay.
I'd love to keep asking questions so that we could kind of catch up with some of these questions. So one question here that I find interesting is, what's the best state as far as regulations to purchase from? So if I'm a spa and I'm being approached by many different CBD companies, not just looking at all the information that you've already mentioned, but is there a better state as far as regulations that I want to purchase from? Also, what are things I need to look at as far as, say, labeling?
Go ahead, Mitzi. You can start.
I was just going to jump in for just 2 minutes and just say, one of the things that is a little bit of an issue is that when you're purchasing CBD products, if you're purchasing them essentially from the resale market, you might not be able to trace the source of where the products actually came from, because you can go on to the state's Department of Agriculture's website and you can generally see who's been issued a hemp license or who's been issued a cultivation or a processing license. But so if you can buy from a processor that's licensed in the state, at least you know that you're kind of cutting out the middleman where you're not entirely sure who's in that middle area, because the retail component of CBD is not really regulated. From that perspective, I don't know, Neil, are there any states that are actually issuing retail licenses for CBD products? I don't.
Louisiana recently started requiring licenses to sell CBD products at retail. New York, the New York legislation that Governor Cuomo signed in December, I think, sets up the framework for retail licenses or retail registration with the state. I want to say New Mexico, maybe, but that's it. Very, very, very few states, if hardly any, require retail licenses to sell hemp-derived CBD products. There are a handful of states that require the products to be registered with the state. So if you're an out-of-state CBD manufacturer or processor and you want to sell your hemp in your CBD product in Utah, for example, you've got to register with the state. You've got to register your product with the state. You don't have to register any retail location or website, just the product. You got to register with that with the state. As far as the question goes for what's the best state to purchase hemp and CBD from, there's two ways to answer that question. If you think if you're of the camp and mindset that it's a benefit to have an unregulated market and grow or do whatever you want and process whatever you want in an unregulated marketplace where everything's in a gray area, that's you, and you think that's good, then there are a handful of states where you can purchase hemp from and CBD from that fall into that camp. The second ideology, which I like to subscribe to, is that I prefer to look to states that have real robust regulatory schemes for their hemp and CBD products and that require strict labeling, testing, manufacturing requirements. So in that camp, Indiana was the first state to come out with a nice, robust hemp labeling and product testing regime. Texas, Florida, Utah, and there are a handful of other states that have very comprehensive regulatory structures for hemp and CBD products. So they require their labels, for example, to have a QR code that link to a certificate of analysis, which shows the CBD content in the specific batch of the product, the THC content, pesticides, other ingredients. So it promotes full transparency. A lot of other requirements in these states that require labeling, that have labeling rules, let me pull up a list here. They require some statements like the FDA has not approved this product. Ohio just passed a pretty robust CBD labeling regime where you've got to specifically label the amount of CBD in the product on your label. You've got to specify whether it has THC or not. And like we said, hemp can legally have up to 0.3% THC. So it's okay to have THC in the product so long as it's under that 0.3% value. You got to have the expiration date, the batch number of the CBD that's in the product. It has to be on the label. Oklahoma, I think, requires the source of the CBD, whether it's national or international. Another state requires to state whether the CBD is natural. Kansas requires that no THC can be in the CBD product, and that's got to be on the label. So it's really all over the map. States are literally all over the map when it comes to CBD regulation. And I haven't seen one label yet that's in full compliance with every state's requirements. So it's tricky to navigate for sure. But what I also have noticed is the FDA, as well as their companion state agencies, aren't going really after retailers, aren't going after the spas who carry these products. Their FDA is sending, if they do enforce their guidance, I don't want to say regulation because they don't really have regulation yet. If the FDA enforces its guidance, they're sending warning letters to the manufacturers, to the companies that are advertising the products, not to retailers. Not a single warning letter has gone to a retailer yet, and that's something we're closely monitoring for sure. Similarly, from state agencies, they're in New York City, they started going into restaurants. City health officials went into restaurants that were selling CBD food and told them to stop. That's really the only it's the only enforcement action I've seen at the retail level. I know Mitzi mentioned some in Massachusetts as well. Was that for retail, or was that at the manufacturer level?
No, that was all retail, because the local boards of health had made declarations that these products, were illegal, essentially, from the local government side. So they came in and seized the products. And I think it is important to kind of understand. Yeah. And I think it's important, especially for spa owners and those in the hospitality industry, to really understand that because these products are expensive, which, certainly they're not inexpensive products to carry as part of your inventory, that you do run a potential risk of, whether or not the inventory needs to be recalled, whether or not you're going to end up being able to return those products to the manufacturer if something exists, because we really don't have appropriate testing or ways to really determine what the impacts are. because again, you're not entirely sure what's included in those products. So again, it's a lot of buyer beware, but just, from a cash flow and an inventory management perspective, just keep that in mind, because the demand might not meet your inventory supply and you're sitting on a lot of inventory. And I'm not sure, how quickly the effectiveness of those products might diminish. And I don't know if Dr. Dahmer, if you have any insight on that, if, the effectiveness of the products, if they're shelf stable, if you've seen anything that it might diminish over time.
I think it depends a lot on what other ingredients are involved in the product, but we've seen pretty good stability. I mean, oftentimes we will put that sell-by date even a year out. More strictly, we'll do it 6 months. But to your point, Nancy, if it's not moving quickly, a year could pass and you're stuck with that product. But they're relatively stable. And again, depending on the medium, but it isn't a problem we've come across.
What about light blocking or, other preservatives and so forth? I mean, can you comfortably say it's about a year if you're putting in light blocking, keeping out of direct heat?
Generally, with the programs that we interact with, it's between 6 months and a year. And yeah, keeping out of direct light, ideally in a container that's going to shield it from that UV light that will degrade it faster. But each company, or oftentimes each regulator, will have their own even shelf life testing. Because this is such a new industry, we participate in that because we're kind of making the decisions based on these ongoing research. How much does it diminish? Because when we're looking at conditions, even a 10% decrease in the cannabinoid content could impact somebody's condition. But generally 6 months, I think, is a pretty safe bet. Again, generally speaking.
And I think too, just to get back to that question, Julie, it's really what's important to the spa or resort. I mean, is local important to you? Craft versus corporate cannabis is a huge one. I mean, although there's still a lot of regulation to be had, looking to those brands that are going above and beyond, looking to other states, like you said, Neil, Indiana, with their robust labeling program. I mean, I've run into insurance companies, Liberty Insurance being one of them, that has its own requirements for labeling for CBD brands. So I think it's important, like you guys said, brands that are making medical claims on their labels that this one's good for sleep, this one's good for pain, probably avoiding those. Is that accurate?
No, I think that absolutely, actually, and you make a great point about insurance companies. And to carry, when you start carrying these products, I think it's important to reach out to your insurance company and see whether any loss related to a CBD product is covered under your policy. Most likely it's not, unless you explicitly told your insurance company that you're going to be selling or carrying and using CBD products. So that's something to absolutely keep in mind. And Mitzi made a great point too about the beware aspect of the industry. And if products are seized by a local state agency, what happens? Are you stuck with them? Can you return them? So it's important to look at the contractual language. It's easy to transfer risk in a contract. You have a purchase order with a manufacturer, but it's important to review the contract, see where who absorbs the risk in case of some regulatory action. That's something that I do a lot with my clients, especially some of my larger clients who are selling CBD on a national level to a lot of retailers. They want to protect themselves. They don't want to be responsible for a local state health authority in Missouri going after one of their retailers. So that's always doable in transferring risk by contract. So you want to keep that in mind as well.
I have another question that came through here, and I want to probably direct it to Stephen, although all of our panelists probably can answer it, except I have no idea the answer. But so the question is, I'm a freelance massage therapist. Nope, that's not the one. So this person is in New Hampshire. When the CBD creams that are used contain various amounts of CBSD, what is the chance of a drug test being positive for the THC to the healthcare worker that's applying it?
Yeah, so in answer for that, topical absorption of CBD converting to THC is impossible. So there would not be a positive testing for that. Even THC applied topically is going to have minimal absorption in the blood, which is where the testing would be done. So even a THC dominant or something that's higher in THC would not have the absorption in the blood, oftentimes to turn a test positive. The exception to that are patches or other things. But again, when we're speaking hemp and we're defining as less than 0.3%, you have to be careful. If it's a patch, that's something where if that THC is on that borderline, if you administer enough, you could reach that level of detection. The same is true if you take an oral CBD that does have THC. Again, depending on the quantity that you're taking, you can reach amounts that are significant enough for a test to be positive. But if you're applying topically, the concern is near zero.
So to recap here, for any spas and resorts that are looking to bring CBD in or perhaps reevaluate their current CBD offerings, it sounds to me like quality assurance is really key here, making sure that it's offered and easy to find, easy to read. It sounds like I'm hearing labeling being accurate. I'm hearing looking to your insurance company and your credit card processor prior to bringing CBD in to be sure that the companies you're vetting are compliant with your current insurance policies. And then another thing I wanted to add along the lines of brand vetting is asking the brands if they in fact have product liability themselves. So like these companies should also be insured. So, everybody should be thinking about insurance when it comes to these products. I wanted to kind of shift gears. We're sort of running out of time, which I know this is awesome. And I feel like we all could talk forever. But let's talk about what is efficacious on the skin. What sort of things, amount of milligrams of CBD, full spectrum products, what are we seeing CBD used for in resorts, in spas? Are we seeing it in facials? Are we seeing it in massage? Are we seeing it in pedicures, manicures, scrubs? Why would we want to use it on the skin? And maybe Dr. Steven, this is good for you. Talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know for sure what, I guess that's not my area of expertise. I will state that CBD, topically, I think there's some interesting research specifically related to inflammatory conditions. And a lot of this is very preliminary. So we're still kind of sorting things out in terms of, what kind of medicinal effect does it have? An area that we're very interested in and probably less used in massage would be for joint-specific pain. We do know that, with joint-specific pain, you have to get much higher dosing. Some estimates from 10 to 50 milligrams per gram material. So it's a much higher dose if we're going to try to penetrate a joint. Reaching muscles in terms of like an anti-inflammatory or even a muscle relaxant. These are things that we would suspect a lower dose, but the truth be told is we don't know. One thing I like about plant medicine, and I don't think we've spoken about this yet, is just, I think the remarkable safety that's afforded with CBD. And I think, we didn't talk too much about harms, but, from my perspective as a doctor, it's relatively safe, and it's a patient-led therapy. So who's going to argue with a patient that feels better or notes some relief from it? And it's often, even in our dispensaries, it's a patient through trial and error that has to find that right product and that right dose. So it was a bit of a roundabout answer to the question, but because we don't know for a lot of it.
Julie, do you have some folks that are on the call right now that currently offer CBD in their resorts and spas and could maybe, throughout the rest of this panel, give their own testimonials of what they have found through clients? I mean, EMT works with a whole host of resorts and have for, almost 2 years now. And I can say, people are loving the products and continuing to love the products. And now that more brands are flooding the market and, claiming they can be cheaper and better, I think that the time-tested products are the ones that are starting to grow a little bit more. These new companies that are just sprouting up and deciding to add CBD, I think that we all should be wary of, again, because of what we all talked about earlier, is that, you know, quality assurance piece, the transparency piece, the longevity piece, looking for brands that aren't just jumping on the money train, that are, you know, staying true to their morals, true to their missions. So, I mean, I guess I'm just curious, is anybody out there, you know, who are you using? What are you using? Are you happy with what you're using? Are people finding that, you know, thousands of milligrams of CBD on the skin is better than, you know, 5 milligrams on the skin? And how do we determine what is getting absorbed? Is the absorption rate, you know, the same as if you smoked hemp or if you used a tincture? Like, what can we expect on the skin as far as, you know, how well it's going to work?
So is that last one a question for one of the panelists, or?
Either to those that are listening, and I also, you know, Dr. Stephen, just to continue on, you know, not really knowing a definitive answer of exactly to what effect CBD can have on the skin, you know, what have you seen, you know, anecdotally, what have you seen for people using it for massage? Are people getting relief? Is it making any difference? Is it placebo?
I don't have a lot of feedback or numbers on patients using it for massage. I do find, you know, neuropathic pain is something that patients use it for quite a bit. Again, is it an anti-inflammatory component that might be helping with that? That's certainly something we see. Pain in general, certainly see a lot of patient using not just CBD, but a combination, CBD and THC topical products. You will get a lot more. So if we're going towards things like anxiety, or, you know, that there are other indications that we're going for, that's something you absolutely want to ingest. We did do pharmacokinetic testing. You can have 15 times the level in your blood if you take cannabinoid CBD specifically with fatty food. So there's a huge difference if you take that orally with fatty food or not. That's something that's been proven, and it's going to be those type of pharmacokinetic studies that are really going to let us know how much is being absorbed, to what extent, and where does it go. But those are some of the things anecdotally we hear patients using topical CBD for.
Hey, Neil, can you talk about what can massage therapists say, you know, when it comes to, you know, a CBD enhanced massage? What are some okay things for massage therapists to say about educating their potential clients on using CBD during the massage?
So, again, it's really a tough question, because you want to be able to walk on the right side of the very, very narrow line of what you can say, what you can't say. Things that I think are okay to talk about the benefits of if you are selling or marketing the product is, CBD will help promote relaxation during the massage. General claims like that, you'll promote relaxation, promote well-being, promote focus or clarity. Those are generally okay. You really get to really start crossing over that line when you talk about specific conditions. They're like Dr. Domber has talked about. We're really in the beginning stages of researching CBD and its medical benefits, and there's a ton of there's a handful of studies out there that evidence medical benefits, but they're not necessarily proven or accepted yet. So, and the product that the spa is going to be selling is not an FDA-approved drug. So you can't be selling it as it is a drug, as if it does actually have help inflammation or help dry skin, because that's when it converts into just a drug for legal purposes. It's really all about the marketing and the claims that you're making. That's really the only distinction between a cosmetic and a drug. That's it. It depends how it's marketed and the intent of the advertisement or the marketing materials. So general is good, specific is bad. That's really the rule of thumb that you want to stick to.
Can a massage therapist give a personal testimonial? Because Julie, you can speak to this, and anybody else out there in retail, the first thing that any of your clients ask because they trust you is, what do you use? So
Sure.
personal testimonials, how do you feel on that?
Again, general is good, specific is bad. Looking back at FDA warning letters that they've sent out to companies, they do a deep dive into customer testimonials on their website. So if I have a CBD company and I allow my customers to talk about how amazing CBD is and it helped my grandma's Alzheimer's, and I leave that comment up, the FDA looks at that and says, no, that's part of your marketing materials. Your product is a drug because you're marketing it as a drug. You haven't applied to make your product a federally approved drug, so therefore you're selling an illegal drug. So I'd be careful with specific personal accounts for sure. Again, general is good, specific is bad.
Okay.
So I wanted to go through the rest of these questions, but I also want to, I just did some quick research, right? And I'm going to do like this live question, say for Neil. So I went to a website of a spa that's offering CBD massage. So they're simply saying, we have found a small, blah, blah, blah. Containing CBD has been shown to have benefits including reduce of pain, inflammation, desensitizes pain, works directly with irritated nerve receptors, helps relax the body out of spasm, may relieve long-lasting relief from many ailments including acute pain, inflammation, arthritis, neuropathy. Okay, so that's just how they're describing this massage. Yeah?
It's a little specific for my comfort. I would certainly stay away from language like that. If you go back and look at FDA letters that they've sent out to CBD companies, those exact claims are in almost every letter that the FDA cites as impermissible. That's bad. Should it be doing that?
I use some real examples, and I have no idea this spot. So I just Googled CBD massage. They are located in the state of Maine, I will say. And I said, I don't know about this wording. So like real conversations with how we can word things. Let me get through some of these other questions because we are close. We are close. And that's why we needed 3.5 hours in person and we do this. So let's see, blah, blah, blah. So this is a comment from someone that actually uses EMT. She said that they looked very hard for a reputable company for a long time and had many, many guests ordered products after leaving the inn because of the efficiency of the product. The massage therapists also have been, involved in helping to make the decision. So they have searched and searched. I like this question. I swear, these are always throwing back to Neil, but but no, I think everybody has an answer. So I love this question. If we had a crystal ball, would you foresee that the U.S. will eventually, I'm trying to understand this, will eventually require third-party independent lab testing? Will that become a requirement?
Sure. For CBD products specifically, yeah, absolutely. States that permit CBD products to be sold as dietary supplements or to be added to foods and beverages require a third-party certificate of analysis that lists the exact CBD content and a whole host of other information. Absolutely.
And I'm going to further that, maybe Neil or Dr. Stephen or Mitzi, because this plays into it, is if yes, how do we as consumers advocate for testing in concentrated CBD products so we know CBD will not contain heavy metals, pesticides, mycotoxins? How, what can we do as an industry and as consumers?
I'll jump in that because I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to answer the other one. And just the clear and accurate labeling of what's in the product is absolutely essential. And these we vote with our dollars, right? We vote with our purchases, and to look for not only a symbol that says solvent and pesticide free, but as Mitzi talked about before too, is demanding a COA and looking that there aren't pesticides in this product, and any reputable product should be able to show that. In addition, there is CGMP does exist in the CBD market that does not exist in THC market, and reading labels like we do with anything else, and that is that clear and accurate dosing, exactly what is labeled. Is it CBD in milligrams, or is it aerial parts or something else that may not make a lot of sense? And I think the key thing too is to continue educating yourself. And I think so much came from this fantastic panel. There's a lot of great information and resources out there to educate exactly what to look for on that label. Those are a couple of things you absolutely have to have when you're looking at a product.
Yeah, that's spot on.
And I think just because a brand says something doesn't mean it's true unless they prove it. So saying that it's contaminants free and organic, I mean, that's great in your marketing, but where is it on your website, to prove it? And I think that that's something that we're getting better as consumers as a whole of looking at labels, reading labels, really asking about sourcing. But you definitely in an unregulated market need to be demanding these tests, need to be demanding that there's accurate labeling, because for the sake of your very strong spa resort brand and for the sake of the safety of your clients. I mean, they're putting a lot of trust in you, and you don't want to disappoint them, by getting all wrapped up in these really glitzy claims that they're making in marketing and on their website, but not really actually backing it up with any substance. So again, I think you guys are all hearing us say, buyer beware. I mean, it is not all sunshine and gumdrops. It is a very exciting. We're seeing a lot of really positive uses and wellness from this plant and from CBD, but there's still so much that needs to get figured out. There is a lot of regulation that still needs to pass, but waiting, is there advice, you guys as a panel, should folks be waiting, or are there brands out there that really are doing the right thing, are most doing the right thing, or should you really, really be taking the time to comb through?
There are a handful of brands for sure that are doing the right thing, that have excellent products, that are doing the customers right. They're fully transparent. It's very easy to see exactly what's in the product. They've got their certificates of analysis right up front on the website. There's links to it on packet product labels, and they're doing everything the right way. They're playing by the book. So just find those companies and work with those companies.
Mitzi, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, just from the perspective of, something that everyone should understand, that if you are actually selling or reselling some of these CBD products, like one of the questions was, they were saying that they were, reselling these products after the massages, that, there's two kind of considerations you have to make sure that you're aware of, one being sales tax and excise tax in that particular state in which you're selling. But the second piece is that you really need to understand whether or not your banking relationship may be in jeopardy. So in a lot of states, CBD is actually more difficult, and hemp and CBD are more difficult to bank for a lot of banking institutions than the legal cannabis market. So that being said, considerations, there's a lot of business considerations associated, which we won't get into on this panel, unfortunately, but there's a lot of things that you really need to consider. Again, banking, insurance, taxation issues. So kind of, it's not only buyer beware of the products, but really understand the impact that could have on your business.
And this just kind of reminds me, Julie, you've done such an amazing job of creating a network of business-to-business relationships. There are spas in the Northeast and in, the spa hive world that are working with CBD brands and are really open about being early adopters, things that they have run into. With the last, few minutes we have, Mitzi, that is a really, really important thing, you guys, that consult your credit card processor and your insurance companies prior to bringing CBD in. The last thing you want to do is you've spent months and months trying samples, you're all excited, your massage therapist, your whole team agrees on what you're going to bring in, and you go to sell it, and then you get a call from your credit card processor that says, you can't do this anymore, you can't sell these products. So all due diligence is required, and making sure that you're taxing them appropriately, because that's also state by state. It's a different tax percentage on CBD from state to state.
Yeah, one quick question, Neil, just yes or no, I guess, would be Connecticut. Can you ingest, so can a spa serve or sell something that's an ingestible?
Yes.
And then the topical question, because there's 3 people that have asked the Connecticut question. So just to quickly hit on that, and then we're going to ask everyone for their kind of final takeaways.
Sure. Yes, Connecticut recently passed legislation permitting CBD to be sold, foods and beverages and as dietary supplements. So Connecticut is a CBD-friendly state. They don't have a strong regulatory structure to require specifics on labeling and packaging, but yes, you can do all of the above in Connecticut.
Fabulous. Thank you. So we're going to try to adhere to our time. I know that we could go on and on forever, and I wanted to, for one, thank everyone that joined the call and thank the panelists again. I feel that this is the best CBD panel I've ever seen for our industry, the spa and wellness hospitality industry, and it's my absolute pleasure to bring this to our audience. We miss Sean Sullivan on this call, who was not able to make it. He will be interviewed separately after he listens to what we talk about, so stay tuned for that. Everyone that was registered for this webinar will receive a recording of the webinar, as well as some additional information on our in-person town hall that will happen in the near future, probably not super near future. So I'd like to be able to end with all of our esteemed panelists giving us their one takeaway, starting with our amazing moderator, Ashley.
Oh, wow. No pressure. My takeaway for everyone is to take your time. The endocannabinoid system isn't going anywhere. The efficacy of these products and the research surrounding these products isn't going away. So it does behoove you all to take the time to vet your existing CBD offerings, as well as additional offerings based on the things that we discussed here today.
Stephen?
Yeah, I will just echo that. I think that this is just an amazing plant, and we're just scratching the surface. And the talk is CBD. I think this will extrapolate to other cannabinoids and their real potential in spa therapies, throughout the United States for many benefits. And so certainly keep abreast of new news that come out. And due diligence. This is more than any other product that we're utilizing. We have to go that extra step, know exactly what is in the product that we will be purchasing and selling, and demand that COA and the due diligence that this is a product that can be trusted, and a company that is producing a great product, and even on top of that has a great mission behind it, ideally. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil?
You guys are all successful business owners. You have a good business sense, so use it. You use your business judgment when evaluating products. If something's too good to be true or smells a little fishy, then it probably is. So vet CBD products like you would any other product. Just be a little bit more vigilant.
And Mitzi?
Well, I think I agree with everything that everybody else already said, plenty of wisdom. So I'll just say pay your taxes. Make sure you pay your taxes. As a business owner, it really can be the one thing that will shut you down without a doubt. You don't want the state DOR coming in, taking a look and seeing that you're not paying appropriate sales and excise taxes. They will just shut you down, and that's the end of all of your hard work. So just pay your taxes.
Great wisdom here today. Thank you so much. We're excited that we were able to bring this into everybody's homes as, you know, we're facing the challenges that we have in our outside worlds today. And in the follow-up email, I will also have ways that you can follow all of our panelists on social media so that you can see what's happening, what's new, the latest legislations, and we will be coming back to you again. We are hoping to host at Foxwoods Resort and Casino, probably summertime, and some follow-up webinars. So please stay tuned for more information about this really ever-changing, exciting topic about CBD in spas, wellness, and hospitality industry. So thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.